The Shack in relation to the murders of Abigail Williams and Liberty German on February the 13th, 2017. Let's talk about it. Does it have anything to do with the murders whatsoever? Does it have anything to do with the killer? Was it just some sort of fancy schmancy rhetoric that means nothing? What do you think? What do you think about Doug Carter on the pulpit of a stage there, acting as if he's just going to fly down into that audience and make an arrest? What do you think about some of the other things that he said in his speech? Not just hiding in plain sight, but you want to know what we know, and one day you will. Some of you that follow true crime, particularly heinous true crime involving the murders of young children, some of you will be familiar with I'm going to call it the John Ramsey case. I'm sick of calling it the JonBenet Ramsey case. I think it's the John Ramsey case. Hi, John. You'll be familiar with Alex Hunter's speech. Alex Hunter, the DA at the time, who decided in a speech in one fell swoop to dismiss the motion to indict made by the grand jury at the time. He decided to make a very similar speech, though, to Carter's, saying, you are wondering what we know and one day you will. Is there a relationship here in some way to do with, is this just bluster? Why this speech? It's not just something any old FBI agent's going to write, is it? Why particularly the Ramsey speech? Is there a connection with corruption, with satanic ritual, with this sort of murder, with this sort of child abuse? Who knows? Is that what it means, Doug Carter? Because we're all struggling here to see what you meant by making such a bold statement when it kind of appears like you know jack shit. And if you do know jack shit, why haven't you worked harder to get an arrest? It's been 2 years since that presser, 4 years since the brutal murders. Okay, so if someone's hiding in plain sight, one might think that it shouldn't be too hard for the FBI and the Indiana forces to bring this mofo down. So, what do you know? Anything? People are going to get very angry. They're not going to let this drift any longer. We know the statistics. 5% of cases after 1 year, if they're not solved within that first year, it's only 5% that are going to get solved thereafter. And this might mean 50 years later, okay, after this abomination has lived more of his life, maybe even had the grace that you have gifted upon him to die a natural death. So, what do you think about that, everyone? What do you think about this press release where not only we have this rhetoric about we believe you are hiding in plain sight, acted with such conviction as if he is going to basically travel feet off the ground like an avenging angel down into the very room, or at least into the community, to, cuff somebody and throw them in the pen, which didn't happen. We've got him making allusions to some say, heretical piece of trash, a movie called The Shack. And we know that Kelsey German, Liberty's older sister, mentioned The Shack a couple of times. Now, what are we to suppose about this? Is it the guilt of the older sister for some reason? Is it really nothing to do with the killer, but is it just something to say? Or why would he want us? First, they want to get you thinking about someone who they later say at this presser isn't the bridge guy, then they want you to think about someone that is completely different, looking completely different, and he is the bridge guy, and they want you thinking about the shack. Well, in what way? Because, you know, the daughter, the elder daughter in the shack was feeling guilty. She was the one that rocked the boat. You know, God, he's so deep, isn't he, John Paul Young? You know, he's so deep. You know, she rocks the boat. Don't rock the boat, people, okay? Don't rock the boat, because consequences for others can occur, and then you'll feel guilty. And then no one will have trust, and then you'll want to bring judgment. So is the shack to do with Kelsey? Is she, you know, involved, or is it something to do with her? Was she the target? Was the shack just something to do with the protagonist and how they might relate to the troll on the bridge? Now, I've thought, okay, well, let's think of this. Well, he's got a daughter or daughters, and he's a hunter, perhaps, or, you know, because there's the deer. He's a man who professes a belief in God. Maybe he's clergy, you know, and, you know, this shack is New Age. It is having people all up in arms about the theology of the writer Paul Young, who to me seems like an angry man. Now, he's probably got reason. He was abused as a child. He's got reason to feel angry, and yet he's going around the world promoting himself as some sort of sage and pretending that he has knowledge, a deep knowledge of the Bible and of Christianity. And he really appears not to. And I can see why some people question his theology and everything. But to me, he just seems like some sort of fraud. That's all I'll say on that. So, you know, do we have this New Age Christianity as a theme, as a correlation somehow? What have we got to do with New Age religion in Delphi? Well, I mean, the area has its share of these New Age preachers, you know, the type maybe at River City, you know, maybe how the young, you know, there's a preacher there, funny name, Devon, who, just as an example, you know, he's ambitious to be one of the big boys. He's brought this, not the doctrine of Lord Jesus Christ, it seems, but the doctrine of his church administrators and of the people that show you how to make money. You go to other churches and you know Steve Kolar, is it Steve Kozar, his YouTube channel, who will break this all down for you. But you know, the preachers, they go to neighbouring parishes, they go into these other evangelistic churches, and they say, hey, hello, now, this isn't, you know, they basically say, this isn't all going to be about praising Jesus Christ, praising the Lord, talking about passages from the Bible. This sermon is going to be a whole lot of fucking rubbish. It's word salad. It's just going to be some stupid story that you are going to lap up, because we're all about entertainment. But not only are we about entertainment, I'm visiting here. I'm making sure you stay connected, you keep tithing. Sorry, I'm yelling at you. So they'll walk in and they'll say, and they try to look all trendy and everything. You know, some of the big guys, the big guns, these billionaires, you know, they're wearing their $500 or $5,000 shoes. They're all about the image, you know, the sharp haircuts, the everything, right? Not that there's anything wrong with that. But in they go. So in they'll walk from this neighbouring parish and say, your preacher, your pastor here, he is one of the greatest men ever to walk this earth. Do you know? And I know you know how lucky you are to have this man leading you. He's basically, he is the way, the truth, and the life for you. Stick with him. Your pastor cares like no other. Your pastor is wise like no other. So Delphi area, Lafayette, wherever around this county, these counties, these regions, there is the New Age spiritualism. It has seeped into this Bible Belt. We're not talking Baptist churches here, or, anything that is relying on traditional rituals. The rituals, yes, they celebrate Easter, and they do baptisms in the river or in the creek, and but it's entertainment. It's not about scripture. It's not about the ritual. It's not really about the life of Christ. I don't know. I mean, it's the music, it's the songs. Yes, this sounds very judgy, but this is just a whole new way to celebrate. And when people start bringing in, this is what happens when people start, when humans, because surely isn't your book, if you're a Christian, isn't your book the Bible? And that's the book. But no, people can write their own parables, they can tell their own stories, they can interpret it different ways, and this is where we have all sorts of, portals are opened, aren't they, into living life a different way that is not true Christianity as such, right? But I know that everything evolves. It's an organic process. This is what humans have done since time immemorial. So whatever. But is the shack something to do with that? Is the shack something to do with who Mac is and who he might be as a member of the community? Is the shack to do with just the serial killer and the signatures? So in the shack, it's the ladybug. The killer leaves a ladybug at all of the crime scenes, and Mac, obviously, there's a ladybug in his hand just before they find Missy's body. And is it simply about that, the shack? Is it to do with Missy herself and her sacrifice, just the fact that a child died? Are they just trying to freak someone out because the woods, a place? It was very strange because we don't know the context now. Do you really believe? Do you believe he was talking directly to the murderer? And then if so, what about the movie, if you've seen it, or if, I might have mentioned something about it that, struck a chord with you? What do you think it's about? Because there's so many different angles. What do you think about Carter's speech, the change in the drawing, the sketch of the perpetrator? What do you think about all of this? Releasing one more word, guys. Releasing one more word, guys, down the hill. Now, a lot is said about, well, the bodies weren't there all night, they were somewhere else. They were actually, there's people that like to say they were in Ron Logan's shed or barn. You must be aware that these places were searched. I don't know. I know there are videos made about the drone, the heat-seeking drone that was sent overhead to look for their warm bodies. I don't know why their bodies weren't seen at night, but I can think that in cold conditions, could the core temperature, I mean, you're expecting bodies to be quite cool after 12, 13 hours. Now, because these are larger human bodies, but I can tell you a cat can feel quite stony cold after a couple of hours. But that is a cat. But that is my experience. I don't know why a heat-seeking drone didn't see the girls. Maybe it just didn't fly over the right place. I don't know. We're told it is. There are also some very interesting photos of the scene taken from above that seem to show how the girls were posed and that sort of thing. And, you know, if you go looking on YouTube or anywhere else that isn't just, you know, the bigger channels and things like that, if you look around, you will find all sorts of people with all sorts of queer ideas. Some of them might be good. They have all their own ideas on POIs. Some of them are quite convinced they know. You know, you'll find the YouTubers with 54 subscribers or whatever that have made quite a few videos. And maybe, yeah, you need to expand further afield. But, you know, I'm not saying find the booby Kenworths, as I call them, the Bobby Kenworths. I mean, there are some sick fucks out there, right? Now, you know, some people think that Stu Sutcliffe is Booby Kenworth. People have tried telling me that Booby Kenworth is dead. I don't know the story. I can't interpret half of this shit that goes on, because I think, you know, there's nearly, I don't know, but, you know, there's some sort of intellectual stuff going on over my head nearly with some of the conversations that go on, or I'm just, you know, because I'm not in that in a certain culture or position anyway. But, you know, the dolls are written about a lot. You've got, you know, the booby Kenworth, who is making these sick videos. He's planting dolls around in the area. There's a sexual sadism to it. You've got Robert Lindsay, you know, writing all about his Mr. X, talking about everything that was taken down from the cemetery, placed at the scene. He's also saying that, you know, bleach was used at the scene, you know, but dolls and things seem to be a theme coming up. We know that there is something queer, not just disturbing, beyond how disturbing finding these two girls dead is, but there's something queer about the scene, the staging. But, you know, they've had 4 years to look up history to see staging, haven't they? They've had 4 years to go through state by state, finding unsolved cases and seeing who has staging anything to do with the staging at DELPHI. So let's hope that they've done that. They've found nothing, maybe. We don't know. Maybe they've found something. There is sort of, you know, obviously superficially, I don't know much about it, but there's superficial connection to Evansdale and the two girls, although they were separated. They were apart. But the two young girls in Evansdale, even younger girls than Libby and Abby. So posing, props. There's something disturbing there beyond murder. And, you know, how does someone hide this part of their character? And where is this part of their character developed? You know, probably in childhood. Has this person confessed at all? You know, Carter's saying, you have told someone, and, you know, and in another breath he's saying, you know, there's someone that knows, you know. Who has faith? Who has any faith about this crime being solved? I don't have a reputation to uphold, so, you know, I can say this without staking my reputation on it. James Brian Chadwell is not the bridge troll. He's too thick. And I don't think the hiding in plain sight, I don't think that type of online presence, that type of cry for attention, that type of bzz, 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 look at me, that is the MO of James Chadwell. I don't think that's the type of hiding in plain sight that the bridge troll is doing. And, he's thick as two short planks, or I don't know, maybe he just was, his maybe depression didn't just have him on his game. Maybe he knew what he was doing wrong as it was happening. But what he did, besides the wrongness of what his actions, but what he did was abduct a child from his neighborhood, maybe even just a couple of houses over. And then what he also did was tell the police that he had seen her, that she had been there and had left, or something like that, maybe saying that she had been out on his front lawn. I don't know. So he's not a sharp tool. And you have to assume that bridge troll has cunning, at least, because it's been 4 years. So police can try and tell you that this is cold. Cold means there's 0 leads to follow up. So whether or not there's 0, I don't see how they can have 0. I mean, let's think about this. We've got a situation where these girls were found straight away. We've got a situation where one of them captured his image and voice. Now, where was this phone recovered from? Did Bridge Troll not take this phone because Liberty quickly threw it away? And would she throw it away thinking, well, we've still got Abigail's phone, because people think Abby didn't have a phone? I think she did. But, I don't know. Rather than trying to call 911, I mean, we don't know, you see. We don't know. Was Libby trying to call 911? Would we have these recordings? Would they have been released, her 911 call? Did she just not get an opportunity? And did she not get an opportunity because the phone was taken off her, but somehow was locked maybe, and so was then abandoned at the scene? Or did she not get to call 911 because just terror, or because maybe she thought, well, I've captured him now, something's going on here, maybe she's dropped the phone like, the breadcrumbs through the forest, we don't actually know, as members of the public anyway, we don't know that the phone was found with these girls' bodies. It could have been anywhere in that woods. So maybe that's how image and audio was actually preserved, maybe because the bridge troll couldn't get his hands on the phone. Possibly he just couldn't open it. But wouldn't he have taken it with him? Well, maybe he didn't want to have to faff around being traced. Maybe he had some idea in his head, oh, I'm being traced. Maybe he didn't want to try and open it. Maybe he didn't have time. Well, I don't know. I'm just talking rubbish now, really, aren't I? But what else, what else might relate to the shack? Well, you've got that water theme, but that doesn't seem a very strong theme because that's just used as a device kind of in the shack to represent things, just as the garden is. You do have that, just the basics of, well, his father is a preacher, and there's often many pastors who have sons who become pastors who, they stay, but are they damaged? And are they just spreading damage? I don't know. How many people leading the church have a true faith? And does that true faith get corrupted from promises of, to someone that is ambitious and who wants to do well, who maybe, wants to raise themselves and their family up? I don't know, who sees what others attain, and they've got their way to do it, and it's through the church, and it's through being a leader, and it's through the showmanship. It's through because Hillsong, these are businesses. Their businesses are the way they make you feel, so that you're entertained, you tithe, you're there, you're giving money, you're buying CDs, you're buying books. Surely don't you just need one book? And I mean, I don't want to, this isn't a judgment on my dear friend who died, but she was very much into spiritualism, into this, it's Ekankar, and I can tell you now, she had tubfuls of books, of CDs, of lessons she did courses, she did all to learn, to be human, sort of, to be the spiritual being. And she just went on this years and years of paying good money for her spiritual journey. Now, wouldn't you need one book? I mean, I look at that and I think, wow, this person's a businessman. This person, this white Westerner who created this out of whatever, he's a businessman. How many people around the world, have spent these literally thousands of dollars investing in his teachings? So, fair enough, I guess, in education, you need the tools for an education. But when Christianity involves this, when you've got this, people who are having an affair over and over again, but they're counseling you and keeping you in the church and keeping you together and pushing you through your, into your faith. And it's so fake, and it's a business. It's a business, and they're not, they need to grow. For all I know, they have key performance indicators. They get salaries, and they can attain higher and higher positions. They pay each other to go to churches. So that's how they get around things, as but they charge fees. Some of them huge fees to go into church. So when you're successful as this sort of preacher, you can be paid tens of thousands of dollars to go and talk at an event, at a church mass, and it doesn't seem very worshipful, really, except worshiping the person on the stage. Anyway, so I don't think the shack is, the thing is, it's given a lot of people a lot of comfort as well, but I think maybe they're not, it's superficially, if you're in a place of pain and grief, you've lost someone, and you just watch this and you're swept up, and you don't really, if you just take at face value the trite things that you're being fed, you'll receive comfort from it, no doubt. You'll be very teary. You'll feel like there's comfort to be gained too. There's redemption for all. In this, Papa wants you to forgive the murderer. He wants Missy's murderer forgiven, because it's God loves all his children. So that gives a lot of hope and peace to people, doesn't it? To be told something like that, because you want to hear it. And so God, it's only God that can judge. And there's that comfort, right? Because Mac, he finds his daughter's body. I mean, it's all in his head. It's all actually an after-death experience, or this experience he has when he's in hospital, but maybe, in a coma, I don't know. But he's experiencing this situation where he gets to feel good about his father. He sees the pain that his father had and how that affected him, and he has that moment, and he gets to be forgiven for the person that he became. He gets to see that God is always there for him no matter what. All three of them, he says he's worried that if he goes back, they won't be with him all the time. And God says, which one says what? Actually, did I write it down? Because God says, the Spirit says, I always was. Jesus says, I always am. And God says, Papa says, I always will be. And people probably get a lot of peace about it, seeing this child represented as being in a happy afterlife. And it gives comfort. This sort of belief, it gives comfort to people who have lost. It gives comfort, sorry about the noise, comfort to people who are frightened of death. I mean, I live in terror of death, and I think most people, if they admit it, or even if they just thought about it, they would be in terror. And this belief in the afterlife helps, but hey, not everyone's going to get there. How could you think that? And then you get these themes of, well, actually, don't just think because you came here first that you're going to get in first. It's up to God's discernment, and that puts the fear in people. And so things like this sort of theology of the shack is it's like, oh, okay, well, it's all right, everything's all right, I can just think this, and that's the truth. What am I saying? I should really stop here, cut this off. I don't know, I just felt like, look, I wanted to rewatch it and see if anything jumped out. And apart from thinking that Paul Young is just some sort of, he's a fraud. I just think he's a manipulative person that has a lot of anger. And that might be fair enough, but he's not healed. He's not healed to be able to be the type of prophet he thinks he is.